From 2007 to 2020, LEGO Star Wars Battle Packs followed a pretty simple formula. 4 minifigs and a small build for one low price. But following the File First Battle Pack fan campaign, LEGO could not help themselves. Why sell the 4 clone troopers people wanted for $15 when you can throw in some fluff and sell it for $30? This act of greed, combined with LEGO's Battle Droid crutch, created an all-new type of battle pack. The Super Battle Pack. Wrong Super Battle Pack. Now, while the 3 subsequent battle packs would fit the typical mold, for 2024, LEGO Star Wars has returned to a concept with incredible potential. So in this video, I wanted to compare the only 2 sets of their kind. Now, in doing so, this won't be my typical on-the-rails comparison. I really want to get into what I think conceptually is better and worse about each set, because I think LEGO did really fall face first into a great concept in 2020, and in some ways they have really refined it in 2024. So let's get in with our basic info. 285 pieces on the 2020 set for $30, and we're seeing the same retail price in 2024, but this one only has 215 pieces. So you are getting less stuff for the same price, although technically because of inflation, this one will be about $35 in 2024 money. But I think to keep it simple in this one, we'll call them the same price at $30. In 2020, we only got 1 instruction manual, but with the new set, even though it's not a benefit to me personally, there are 2 separate instruction manuals. So this does allow 2 people to partake in the build at once if they only own one of the set. I guess if you owned more than one of these, you could just split up the manuals and the bags, but in this newer set, they give you the 2 manuals, which is great. Starting with the builds for the 501st set, we saw a couple of large and very high quality builds, although they did get their fair share of complaints from the community, as many people saw them as oversized, which is understandable. You're right, but I do see these as very nice builds for this 501st set. When you look across the street, though, you see much smaller builds for the 2024 set, with a Tri-Droid, a Stap, a little turret barricade, and a speeder bike. And all of these just feel so much smaller compared to what we saw in the 2020 Super Battle Pack. I think placing all of the Super Battle Pack builds next to what feel like their closest cousins from the smaller battle packs of years past really shows what LEGO's concept was back in 2020 versus how they've changed their thinking in 2024. And in 2020, of course, it was a straight up cash grab. They wanted to sell you 4 501st clones for $30 instead of, at the time, what was the normal $15. And so to accomplish doubling their profit on each group of 4 501st troopers sold, they made much larger than normal battle pack builds. And it worked like a charm. They made a lot of money. The end. You know, that it is what it is at this point, right? That's what they did. But in doing so, like I said earlier, they kind of created a cool concept that could be fleshed out to be way better. And so for 2024, they have gone back to normal size battle pack builds. Well, those 2 are like half the size of the old ones, but you can see like the Stap, and I don't have the brown Stap handy from 2007, but a Stap nonetheless that's about the same size, and the Tri-Droid are like, it's all just battle pack type builds. And while this does cause the clone builds to look much worse than they did in 2020, it did open up the ability to have more builds in the set with the couple of droid builds. And so that adds a real conflict to the set that we did not see in 2020. This comparison wouldn't be complete if I didn't touch on the play features for these builds. For the speeder bike, both of them have 2 stud shooters. The newer set has the newer style stud shooters, but nonetheless, it's the same function. You can put 1 clone trooper on the old speeder and 2 clone troopers on the new speeder, with 1 facing back with a rear turret, which is a really cool thing. I really like that. The ATRT and the little barricade have a stud shooter. The ATRT, of course, can sit its clone trooper on top with the handlebars. You have the posability of the legs versus the little barricade where you could take the shield off and you can't really do anything else. There's not even studs for the trooper to stand on when he's using the barricade, which I think is kind of sad. There's a little added crate, though, that has a little thermal detonator that you can have a clone trooper take and bring up to your Octoptara Tri-Droid. The Tri-Droid is an amazingly fun build with flick-fire missiles. Maybe that shouldn't be in the same sentence, but it does have flick-fire missiles, and then the little cannons on top can rotate just like we saw in that 2008 Clone Wars movie. The legs are also plenty posable. And finally, the Stap speeder just adds in a little something extra for the Battle Droids, where you can have a speeder battle where the Stap can be chasing after the clone speeder, and the clone speeder can be shooting back with the rear-mounted weapons. Like, I think there's a lot of playability for both sets, but if I had to pick one over the other for playability, the 2024 set definitely has a beat. I normally wouldn't do this, but if we go ahead and stack on all of the non-minifigure components from the 2024 clones and droid. Oh, come on. It's all on there. It doesn't matter if it's together or not. The weight is going to be 2.7 ounces. And if we take just the ATRT from the 501st set, the weight is 2.69, 2.7 ounces. It's the exact same weight, so the same amount of plastic for 4 different builds in a crate as just the one build from the 501st set. So you can see the disparity in value you're getting for your money in that 2020 set as far as the builds go. I think the builds are better, they're bigger, but they are more numerous and potentially, in the case of the Tri-Droid and Stap, cooler maybe. But of course, with battle packs, the main draw is certainly not the builds. It's the minifigures. Both sets here include 4 clone troopers. Back in 2020, we saw that 501st Jetpack Trooper alongside 3 regular 501st Troopers, and in 2024, we see the Coruscant Guard Trooper alongside 3 regular Phase 2 clone troopers. I think design-wise, all 8 of these clone troopers are really great, really consistent. However, the different helmet on the new figures just looks uglier than the helmet mold on the old figures. It's just how it is, which is really unfortunate. So from a clone army building perspective, we're looking at $7.50 per clone trooper. In both cases, if you're just after clone troopers, you're paying way more per figure than you would have had to if they had just released a normal battle pack. In 2020, that meant $3.75 a figure versus the $7.50 a figure it ended up being. Or, of course, in modern times, that's $5 a figure versus $7.50 a figure. No matter how you shake it, if you're a clone army builder only, this is bad. Fortunately, I think the vast majority of people, including myself, will happily accept some opposing forces within their clone super battle pack here, and one of the most requested battle packs over the last 5 years in the community has been a droid battle pack. So to see that in a full form here compared to, it feels just like the scraps in that 501st set, makes so much more sense for this concept. Especially when you consider historically, if you bought a versus battle pack, you would get the same amount of figures for each faction. Of course, this one not increasing the price could only include one build, but if you bought 2 opposing forces battle packs when they would sell them separately, you would still get a build for both sides and at least get the same amount of figures for each side, if not more. And in this case, you get more. They're just doing it right. So the value for someone looking to army build both factions at the same time is off the charts compared to what we saw in 2020. And I think LEGO heard the feedback about this 2020 set, and that's how we ended up with this set in 2024. It's also why it took so long for them to make another Super Battle Pack. I think when this first Super Battle Pack came out, they did it again as a cash grab, but they weren't sure if it was going to be successful, and thus it took 4 years to see another crack at it. I think looking at all the boxes next to each other, it paints a really interesting picture of what was going on at the time. In 2020, of course, 2 battle packs would cost you $30, and therefore the 501st battle pack costs you $30. But it didn't provide any added value for army builders compared to what you'd be getting with the other battle packs. And so I always felt like that was wrong. And so I think when you look over here and you know that battle packs have gone from $15 to $20 now, which is probably still too much money, and it makes this look like maybe it's a better value than it really is because they've inflated the price of battle packs. But that's besides the point. Let's just pretend that $40 is fair for 2 battle packs in 2024, because that's what it will cost you at the store at retail price for 2 battle packs. Well, this one's only $30, so it's a 25% discount compared to what are normal battle packs, and you're getting more figures. I know battle droids really aren't minifigures, and most people don't value exactly 1-to-1 a battle droid to an actual full minifigure. It doesn't have any printing, not the same amount of stuff, but like still, you get the point. You're getting a lot there for the $30 and not $40. Like they didn't keep it the same price that 2 battle packs would be together, and I think that is shockingly admirable. Like I would say both of these sets are worth their $30 price tags, but for different reasons. Like it's not like the amount of stuff you get in the 501st battle pack doesn't feel like it's worth $30 because the builds just are that good and big. But when you consider it's supposed to be a battle pack and it's supposed to be really a 2-in-1 battle pack because they start throwing in battle droids, it falls short of being what a battle pack should be at that price point, while the newer set doesn't. When it comes down to which set I think is better and what I would recommend doing if you're looking into buying either of these, either just one of or multiple of, I obviously have a deep connection to the 501st set. I also do think the clone troopers are pretty much perfect from this set. It's something I can't quite say about the newer set's clone troopers. The super battle droids, on the other hand, are amazing in this set. The new design is just something that I love, and it's a breath of fresh air to actually really like a new design of a character from LEGO Star Wars. Like, it's actually amazing to me that they did such a good good job with this one. So I do really like that from the Droid Battle Pack, and it does give me a drive to still want to army build this newer set, even though I really dislike the helmets for the clone troopers. It'll cost me $10 more a set to buy replicas, but I expect to find myself buying at least 10 of these sets, and I would recommend buying as many as you feel like you want or need. If you're also going to buy replica helmets, of course you have to factor that into the value that you're getting for your money here, but I think for army builders and kids, this newer set is just a better execution of what was an interesting concept in 2020. If I had to pick a favorite set here, it'd have to be the File First Battle Pack from 2020 for a few different reasons, but let me know in the comments section below which of these super battle packs is your favorite. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and you can check out more LEGO Star Wars comparisons on the end screen now.